Welcome everybody to a very special Comic-Con panel with the Fleet Science Center. My name is Andrea Decker. I have the pleasure of working for the Fleet Science Center. And I'm super excited that the Fleet is able to bring you the Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Comic-Con panel. The mission of the Fleet Science Center is to connect people in San Diego and hopefully with this all over the world to the power and possibilities of science to create a better world. And if there is one show that has shown us that you don't only need superheroes to save the world, you need science and scientists to save the world. It has been Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So I'm super excited that we have writers, we have actors, and we have amazing scientists on this panel to lead us through a discussion about the show, the stories, and the science behind all of it. So without further ado, I would like to introduce the panelists, and I'm going to go by order. I'm going to call you up by name and then ask you to introduce yourself. And we're going to start off with one of the scientists, Melissa Miller.
Hi, Melissa Miller. I'm a chemist at Scripps Institution of Oceanography, and I go out to sea on research vessels and study climate change and other aspects of the seawater. I'm also a science writer, and I've contributed a few articles to the Fleet Science Center about representation of science and scientists in popular media. I just started a website, howmanyscientists.com, that is going to crowdsource answers people have about science and scientists that they see in TV shows and movies. And it's really important to me to sort of bridge the reality and the fiction in science fiction so that kids know that they can be scientists and everyone learns that they can trust science.
Thank you, Melissa. Next up would be Sharla and James.
So I'm Sharla Oliver.
I'm James Oliver.
We are a married writing team. Worked on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I started season 1 as an assistant actually on the show, and then we started writing together in season 4. And we love all the fun science stories that we get to tell with this show, and just kind of all the different worlds that we get to delve into. But we're so excited to talk to some real scientists who can tell us all about all the stuff that we've been doing.
Yeah, and since we're all humanities majors writing about science, you can tell us what we got wrong.
Thank you so much, both of you. Next up is Troy Sandberg.
Hi, I'm Troy. I'm a bioengineer and a lifelong science enthusiast. I've been volunteering with the Fleet Science Center for years now. They do a lot of great work around San Diego, getting the message of science out there to people. My research involves evolution and genetic engineering. I manipulate the DNA of bacteria and evolve them to various environments and then see what mutations they get that let them acquire new powers, basically. And I'm also a big physics enthusiast, so any sort of space or quantum physics questions I would love to chip in on as well.
Thank you, Troy. And then we have Craig Titley.
I am none of those things Troy is. I am a writer and one of the producers of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Also a giant fan of the show myself and a fan of science and of the Fleet Science Center. So I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you, Craig. Next up is Elizabeth Henstridge.
I'm Elizabeth Henstridge. I play Jemma Simmons on Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Simmons is a biochemist and very clever, and I love playing her. I come from a family of scientists, so I have a great respect for science, and it's just so cool to be on a panel surrounded by so many amazing people. I'm fascinated by what all of you do, including the people I actually know personally, which says a lot for the caliber of the panel, you know?
Thank you, Elizabeth. Next up, we have Anila.
Hi, thank you for having me on this panel. It's an honor. I am a scientist at the Salk Institute for Biological Studies, and my training is in physiology and metabolic disease. So I basically study diseases like diabetes and the impact of nutrition and exercise on the human body. But I also create mutant animal models to study human disease. So I create mutant mice and rats, and mutation in humans also very much interests me. And that's why I'm here today. I'm very excited to talk to you all about the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Thank you, Anila. Next up, we have Geoffrey.
Hi, Geoffrey Bell. I'm a executive producer, writer, and one of the co-showrunners of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And have always also been a big lay person who loves science. I've been involved with the Science and Entertainment Exchange for years, and really thrilled to be on the show with a bunch of legit scientists.
Thank you, Geoffrey. Next up, we have Joel.
Hi, I'm Joel Stoffer. I play Enoch, the Chronicom on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I'm really happy to be here. I'm really excited to hear what actual scientists have to say about all this.
Thank you, Joel. And last but certainly not least, we have Virginia.
Thanks, Andrea, and thanks for the invitation. I'm a professor in cognitive science at UC San Diego and associate director of the Halle-Julle Data Science Institute, also at UC San Diego. I study machine learning, brain-computer interfaces, and vision. And my connection to the fleet is my graduate student, Eric Morgan, and I helped Ashanti and Paul put together the visual illusions exhibit at the fleet that opened just before everything closed down.
Yes. Thank you so much, Virginia. Thank you all for the wonderful intro. And with that, I have questions. I would like to start off with the Agents team here. So I've been a fan of the show since the beginning, and you've taken us on a wild, wild ride from mutants to space travel to time travel to aliens to a virtual world to the mainframe. How do you come up with these stories?
The answer is with a lot of really smart people. You know, we have a writer's room of diverse, talented people. And it really grows out of character. We started off, I think, with a handful of very interesting characters. And it's really, what are the stories that will put those people in conflict, in peril? How many times can Fitz and Simmons be pulled apart? But really it comes out of character. You look at what the character wants and needs, and what happens if you apply pain, and what happens if you put them in certain circumstances. And that's the place where we start. I mean, other writers, what do you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I always loved about working on the show is that we all try to entertain ourselves. It's in a way like what's exciting to us, what's fun to explore. Because if we're excited and having fun, which we managed to do for all those years, the fans are going to be having fun as well. I always tell people there was never a day in the entire time where I'm like, I don't feel like going to work today or whatever, because just all of our big brains, the writer brains, and we're all kind of science nerds as well. So it was exciting, and you just gave that laundry list of all the areas we touched in all the seasons, and it's kind of impressive when you hear it all at once.
Yeah, and it'll be even like just on our lunch break, we're talking about some cool article somebody read or some cool like idea that somebody heard, and then just because we're excited about it, sometimes it might find its way into a story once we start the room up again for the afternoon and start talking about, whoa, what do you think we should have Simmons and Fitz working on this episode? Oh, you were talking about that cool thing earlier, like, and everybody was excited about it. And so it'll just come from like everybody bringing their own fun ideas into the room, and sometimes the stories just come out of that.
And sometimes, you know, it coming from character, it being a science fiction show that allows you to address character things in a way that other people can't. So a lot of people can write about, you know, a couple having an argument. We get to put that couple inside of an alien computer where their thoughts become real and stab you in the face.
One of the joys of the show has been, if you look at who the characters were when they first start, and you look at the art they've gone over the 7 seasons, no one is who they were. If you look at who Jemma was at the beginning, or who Enoch was at the beginning, I mean, he's still developing through the season. But every character, Coulson, Mac, May, they've all had big arcs, and we try and ground those as real as possible because we have a lot of big what ifs within the show.
So you said that passion for science plays a role, and that sometimes ideas from the real world will find their ways in the show. And Jeff, you mentioned that the Science Entertainment Exchange was part of it right from the beginning. So did you know from the beginning that you would have a very science-centric show?
Yeah, we did. I mean, with with so many of our characters being scientists. And when we first started, we didn't have any giant Marvel intellectual properties that we could wave and say, look, here's Iron Man. And so instead we could have, here's some really cool tech, or here's some really neat idea, and then explore that. And then having Fitz and Simmons or May or Daisy deal with those was a way we generate a lot of stories early. And so that's been very helpful. And the fact that we have smart actors who can actually, it's actually fun. Like you'll see Elizabeth in a table read and we throw her like some combination of words she has never heard before. And she kind of and you go, oh. And then you see her on set and she says it as if it just flows out her mouth, just spectacularly. It's just unbelievable to watch how quickly and how facile they are with what we do.
Oh, well, I have the advantage of saying that's just how you pronounce it in British. Like that's my British. True.
I was actually wondering about that because there are so many big science words that you have to recite in the show. Some of them made up. I have the feeling, I'm not a scientist, so it could be that they're all real. I have the feeling that gravitonium is not a real element yet, but we'll see about that when we talk to the scientists in a second. But how did, Elizabeth, how did you kind of get into the role of the scientist? Like, I mean, you say you come from a background of scientists, so did your family background help?
I think it gave me a false sense of entitlement to be able to say those words, maybe. But yeah, I mean, I didn't really have to learn many fight scenes or stunts or anything. So yeah, my stunts were the scientific jargon. And you know, oftentimes, especially at the beginning, Fitzsimmons, which I'm a part of that double act, were kind of moving the story along and explaining the problem, and then later explaining the solution, which were kind of both science-based. So it was just really fun because you get to, as an actor, you get to play the distress and the discovery, and then the discovery of the solution that's really exciting. And so there's something infectious about a character that's so passionate about something and believes in something. And yeah, Simmons is all about science. So as an actor to play that was really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you ever in your family see your scientist family members in action? Do you know, like, did you know what a lab looked like before you went into the role?
Yeah, so I was prepared to go to university for medicine. So I did 3 sciences and drama as my final exams before university. And my mom, she tried real hard to get me to that medical school. And so I had all sorts of work experience, and I've watched operations, and yeah, I did a ton of work experience. And it's a field that fascinates me. It just turned out that I was more passionate about acting. But yeah, I've been lucky enough to be in some rooms, and then yeah, I studied the 3 sciences at school, so I've seen some of it. My sister's a vet, so I've watched them do some operation on various pets, which I don't know if I should say that, but I have.
Yeah, you should. That's what vets do. It is.
They're very good at it.
Somebody here is creating mutant mice, so I think you're okay.
Thank you.
That is correct. So when we look at the characters that Fitz and Simmons play in the show, I love it because they come from different fields. So we've got Simmons, the biochemist, and we've got Fitz, the engineer. But they all seem to be very versed in so many more science fields than just their particular field. When I look at the scientists, how is that for you? I mean, how much outside knowledge of your specific field do you have?
It's definitely interesting because I always tell people that most scientists are really specialized. So on a lot of shows, it doesn't seem realistic necessarily that one person or one small team could do everything. But considering this show, the actors we have on this panel here, one is a sentient machine and one survived 4,722 hours on a desert planet. So yeah, maybe nothing to point to you, Anila, but not just any biochemist could also pull a bullet out of somebody or, you know, MacGyver some instrument in just a few hours. But I believe that Simmons can, so it's easy enough to suspend that belief just because of who she is. So it doesn't bother me on this show for sure.
I definitely have no problem with biochemists being portrayed as awesome people who can live on foreign, like complete alien planets, survive, and then save the world. So yeah, I'm totally cool with that. That's very real in my opinion.
I think it depends a bit on the scientists. Some are very specialized, and some I'm a quite general, covering, you know, brain-computer interfaces, vision, machine learning, but even if you're narrow, I think nowadays many scientists are working in teams. So you have your specialty, but you have to be able to communicate at least at some level, you know, which is still, you know, a TV level even if you want. But you have to be able to converse at some level with a variety of different scientists to solve some of the problems of today.
Yeah, I would say scientists nowadays probably have a much better grasp of fields they're not actively working in than ever in the past, just because of the internet. Like scientists are naturally inquisitive people, and so I literally study physics for fun in my free time because I can, and I can even just look it up on the internet. And the multidisciplinarity of science and all these big team projects that are happening nowadays does require you to, you know, even if you're a biologist, you might need to be familiar with artificial intelligence and machine learning, because that's going to be applied to your data sets to extract valuable insight.
I just love that you can use the word data sets in a sentence and it makes sense.
I know, it's so good.
I use it all the time.
Come on over.
Yeah, like you were saying, you can go look up so much on the internet, and I think that is both an amazing and a very dangerous thing for us writers. Of like, we can go look up stuff and we're like, oh, we can find an article and read it like for 30 minutes about something. Like, okay, we can write a scene about this now. And I think sometimes we're like, yeah, we get overconfident, and we can, it'd probably be better if we actually go and talk to the scientists and figure out the nuances and stuff. But
sometimes it's a rewrite at, you know, midnight when you need new pages at
we're like,
8 a.m.
we need a science term. Science paper where we can find some sort of cool term that we can use.
When in doubt, we throw quantum entanglements at everything.
That's a
Yeah. There was a whole season where quantum entanglement got us out of all kinds of problems. And I noticed we weren't the only show. It seemed like any science fiction show, any space show, they were talking about quantum entanglement. I thought, well, you know, we'll go down that path.
You didn't have the budget to have a scientist on retainer at 4 o'clock in the morning?
Well, you know, we do have, like I said, we have this, the Science Entertainment Exchange has been fantastic. And they've hooked us up with scientists over the years. We can send long, detailed questions. Early on, when we gave Fitz a brain injury, we talked to a neuroscientist about what part of his brain would be damaged and what were the limitations of that, and what could he cook, because he had a figment of Simmons happening as he was going forward. And so we talked with somebody about that. We talked with my friend Jordan Evans at JPL, someone I met through Exchange. Talked with him, and we were trying to figure out how old the monolith was and how do you date something that's older than the Earth that predates carbon dating. And so finding out fun little details like that hopefully will be enough that people kind of go, sure, it sounds great.
At least find a way. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, for a lot of the medical things, we'd have a rep on set. So how you know, try to resuscitate someone or operate on someone. So she was there to make sure that it would be how it was in a hospital or, you know, a field hospital or something. That was really useful.
I'm glad that there's so many resources.
A doctor, so sometimes I tried to talk to her about the medical stuff and try and get input for how close it was, and we always do as close as we can to what is true, and then sometimes if the story is just a little bit better the other way.
Yeah.
It is amazing how many times science we will, as James said, you know, there's an assistant in the room and somebody will come in with something, an idea, and the assistant will immediately type it up and it goes up on the big screen. We'll watch a YouTube or watch a science clip. And it's amazing how many of those have inspired stories and tech that's come out of it.
I find that highly fascinating. And I want to delve a little bit into actually some of the science concepts. And I want to start with the inhumans, if we can. Do you all from the Agents team have your favorite Inhuman, other than Daisy? We all love Daisy. I mean, we love all of them, actually, as a fan. I like all the characters. But what was the one that maybe was the most challenging to write and to come up with powers and make it believable? Was there something that was challenging about that? Or is it just in the superhero world so common these days that...
Well, sometimes what's challenging is when you've got someone with cool superpowers, how you don't just have them win the fight every time the same way. Because like Yo-Yo's an example where she's super fast. She walks in the room, zoom, zoom, she gets all the guns and the scene's over. Fun the first time you do it, but you wanted to have more than one move for 100 episodes.
No, it's actually a big problem. You know, Yo-Yo is arguably the most powerful just because before you can throw a punch, you're dead. Before you need anything, you can do it. And then Daisy, I mean, we've had episodes where, you know, she's quaked entire forests down. And so again, it's more fun to see her, you know, fight that way. But the challenge is those fights would be over with a single and she's done. So finding ways to justify why they don't always do it is really our biggest challenge.
Yeah, that makes sense. From a biological side, scientists, mutations and inhumans, how close are we to getting there? How, you know, when can I get my superpowers?
I mean, we're already genetically engineering humans. Like, there are living humans on the earth right now that have had their DNA manipulated in a targeted way. So we're still a ways off from learning how to sort of program in the software language that is DNA, because you are a collection of 3 billion or so base pairs of DNA that are just A's, G's, T's, or C's all in a string and split into different chromosomes. And it's very equivalent to the ones and zeros of computer code. The specific sequence encodes information, and that leads to function, an organism functioning. And so it's almost limitless, the things you can do with a creature with a particular DNA sequence. Like, look at every living creature on Earth. All of that craziness was designed through random trial and error, and the creature just trying to pass on their genes. So now that we can actually change the letters of our code with genetic engineering and CRISPR and things like that, there's, you know, you can do basically anything as long as it doesn't violate the laws of physics in terms of superpowers. So it's nice that nowadays shows try to have more sciencey explanations instead of just being like, oh, you got exposed to radiation and now you have superpowers.
Anila, you create mutant mice. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I think that in many ways, we don't realize just how amazing a model of human metabolism or human disease mice are. So mice are amazing. They're like a great partner for scientists. They're scientists' best friend, because a lot of what we know about the medications and the disease process, we get that information from mice. So I will often look up, or we will study mass genetic information that we're collecting from, for example, the Human Genome Project, and now a lot of the mutations that companies like 23andMe will be looking into. We'll find something that correlates with a certain type of disease or a trait. Like, for example, you have a mutation or a single change in a base of the DNA, as Troy was mentioning. And this correlates with something like this person has a less likelihood to develop diabetes. So that's kind of an innate superpower that exists in the population, if you think about it. And then I will create that mutation in a mouse to see on a closer level what is going on that makes this mouse less likely to develop diabetes. And then I might feed the mouse a high-fat diet and then see that it is better at warding off diabetes over time than its non-mutant counterpart. So understanding why that happens might help us develop a drug that will act like the mutation. And then if you can use that drug in humans, you might help them prevent diabetes. So that's just a very simplified explanation of what mutant mice can help you achieve. But with respect to mutation, I think that we don't realize just how much natural mutation occurs in the population and how much of that actually does give you beneficial advantages in the case of humans and survival. There are often mutations that are detrimental, but some of them can be beneficial. But like Troy mentioned, you can't really defy the laws of physics. So, for example, I love the idea that Yo-Yo can move as fast as she does, but accelerating to that point might actually kill us. So once we achieve that speed, we could survive, but it's the acceleration that would make us probably melt. So yeah, I don't know if we can get a mutation on that yet, but other ones maybe.
Keep on working on it.
Pair with technology to help out, and maybe biological tissue can't sustain super high accelerations without turning to goop, but like if you're a cyborg or something, you could have reinforcement with metal.
Oh, I was just going to say the part of the Inhuman storyline that I really appreciated was it was one of the few times that oceanography really came into it, the whole dispersal through the food chain, and I thought that was really well represented. Scientists can trace elements and radioactivity back to sources and then all the way up, accumulating in bigger and bigger animals that eat each other and into humans. And I think it was a really good reminder and portrayal of the fact that if you pollute something in the ocean, you're affecting the human population. And so that was one of the things I really appreciated.
And all the fish pills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, when you play the scientist, do you have in mind that you might influence the next generation of possible scientists?
At first, no. Being a woman scientist isn't unusual for me, for my, the people that I'm surrounded by. So I didn't really think anything of it. The only thing, I was very attracted to the role because she was intelligent and strong-willed and allowed me to play somebody that's very confident. For somebody that might not be as confident in real life is wonderful. What a great way to spend your day. But it was only when going to Comic-Cons or signings that we would do that's what 90% of the people came up to me to say, I love science, you've made me love it more, I want to do it more, I'm chatting with my friends about it. Or, you'd see people in cosplay would be in lab coats, and that it made me realize how privileged I have been to be surrounded by female scientists, and maybe other people hadn't seen that represented before. And so to be a part of that was really cool. And I'm glad that's why the interaction with fans is so, as an actor, it's just everything, because then you can take that back to work with you the next day and, have conversations with writers and go, somebody mentioned this thing, or what do we think about that? And being on a show for so long, we have the ability to mold storylines, or, like Sharla was saying, read an article and it can be in the show. And so that there's that conversation, I think, between the outside world and what's created that's really special.
I like that a lot. I like that so many people came up to you and say they like science more now than they have before. I think that's amazing. And it shows the power that stories have.
Yeah, and it's shown to be fun. I think a lot of schools don't have the resources to do crazy experiments every week in science, but sometimes you have to see it to be it. And I think the show helps to showcase science as something that's exciting and innovative and just for everybody. Every character has some relation to science in the show, and it's just that resonated with people.
Yeah. Sure what resonated with me, that's for sure.
As someone who got into science because I was such a huge Star Trek nerd as a kid, I can see that carrying on through the generations, that there's a whole new set of people getting that inspiration from, Jack Kirby comics and this show. And I like that.
Right.
And Elizabeth, it's not just the future generation. I think that roles like the one you play really do reinforce the passion and inspiration that current scientists have. As a female scientist in the field, it's just good to know that the view of science and scientists is changing. We're now seen as kind of like heroes and positive forces. So it makes it easier for us to interact with non-scientists because they look at us as helping the community and helping with progress. And that just makes everything so much more positive and effective. So I think that for current scientists, it's really important to see your depiction of science.
And I always wondered, and that might be a question for Virginia, is how much pop culture might influence what science is researching and doing, especially when we look at shows like S.H.I.E.L.D., where they come up with a framework, with a matrix, with a way to connect, to upload the brain into a virtual world. How much might you or your students have been influenced by pop culture?
That is a good question. I think there's a little bit of influence in research, but I think there's a lot of influence in our outreach. So we, many scientists will go into the public schools and get kids, and especially girls and underrepresented minorities, get them interested in science. And one of the ways to do that is to, make it fun. And so we try to make it fun with brain-computer interface games, but you can also make it fun by bringing up science fiction. I mean, the kids love that stuff, and it's way more interesting than here's a diagram of the brain and this is here and here. But like here you can play with your brain, or here you can do something like what they do in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Anything that you can connect it to something that's fun and exciting for kids really helps in getting kids excited about science. And it's also fun for us. It's more fun for us to do that. So we go out, we do brain-computer interface games. The kids just love to, they can compete against each other, and they love that. And then we try to also teach them a little bit of, this is how the brain works in there, but they're mostly interested in the game. But I think it gets them excited and interested.
Most scientists I know were inspired, at least to some extent, by the media they consumed as children and science fiction and stuff. Because I remember seeing Harry Potter or reading it and being like, oh, that would be amazing if I could do magic, but that's not actually how the world works. And then like the Ender's Game book, they have some plot point where someone is able to live far into the future because they flew him around close to light speed. And so time moved slower for him. And it was the same sort of thing where I was like, oh, they just made this up. Like, that's not how the universe works. That could never happen. And then I'm inspired to look up time dilation. And like, that's a feature of the physics of our universe. And it's great when shows with all their crazy plot points will try to have a sciencey explanation. And then maybe someone's interest is piqued and they go look it up and they realize, oh my God, this is crazy. I want to learn more about this. Maybe I should spend my life researching this.
And crazy plot points, that brings me to season 5. I've been trying to watch little snippets of each of the season because, it's been a while for this panel. And season 5, boy, it throws me for a loop because there's so many points of going back in time, going forward in time, and going back in time. And then they're stuck maybe in a time loop. So I'll have to figure out. And then, of course, Enoch's character is in there. And I find Enoch's character very interesting because it is for me at least, it's kind of the intersection between an alien and the android robot world that we just came from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. As an actor, can I ask you, Joel, how is it to play a machine when acting, as I understand it, is reacting and emotions, but as a machine, you're not supposed to have any?
I didn't necessarily have a formula when I stepped into this that I could apply. I remember on episode 422, the director was Billy Gerhardt, I think. Mm-hmm. And he, I said, "What can you tell me?" And he went like this.
So Billy.
I mean, I was like, and luckily, I mean, there wasn't a lot for me to have to dig in to do for that episode, but it was, whatever it was, it ended up working. But in subsequent, in season 5, episode 5, I mean, the word that stuck out for me, that helped me the most, was sentient chronicom, because there's a sense of feeling in this guy, but clearly, there's no human emotion there. And I think what it was is that anytime I, as an actor, would have an emotional response, I would always, because I'm an observer, as a chronicom, I'm an observer, I would always turn that into curiosity and being intrigued and like, what's this about? Instead of responding to the emotion as a human, I would try to just make it about discovery and leave it at that. I mean, really, like, if I went anything beyond that, it would get too complicated.
I could see that. And then we had the we had the mainframe and the robots and the androids in the story. I was wondering, Virginia, how do we see technology advancing in that field with machine learning? There's, many more algorithms. There's Siri now that helps us with any question we might have. Where do you see the world going in that respect?
So we're nowhere near where is portrayed in the shows. The shows are much more exciting in that way. Machine learning is very good at very specific problems, and even in fact better than humans in some very well-defined problems. So do these images show cancer or not? They're excellent at that. They're really good now even at just face recognition, a variety of very specialized tasks we can do really well, almost as well as humans, sometimes better than humans. Again, it depends on how restricted. Where we're really missing and where the next generation of AI is going to have to go is where for the systems to start being able to integrate more context and also being more, it's called explainable, so you can actually understand what they're doing and why and how. So right now, most of the training is you have a whole bunch of images is easy. So if you're doing computer vision, you have a whole bunch of images of one class, you have a bunch of images of another class, and however many other classes, and you have to say, this is a cat, this is a dog, this is a horse. And you do gazillions of those. And the network then can do a really good job at seeing cats. But that's not really how humans learn, and that's not how the androids learn in the TV shows. That's much more natural and also much more transferable. So you learn cats and dogs, and then someone shows you one horse, and now new other horses, you can still say that's a horse. But the computer systems are not quite like that. They're much more brittle. They're much more specialized. And so where the field is moving very slowly is to be more general, to be able to abstract ideas basically. And also one thing that humans do is we develop our own questions, right? I mean, especially as scientists, as writers, you have creativity as well. We come up with our own questions and new questions, and that is really totally missing from the AI and machine learning systems of today. They're told what to learn, and then they can do a great job. They do pattern recognition, they do a great job, but the ability to come up with the new problem, like in the show, when Ada realizes that there's this conflict between these two goals, and then coming up with realizing there's a conflict, that's actually doable in some AI systems. You can put rules in and they can say, okay, these are inconsistent. But then actually coming up with a solution around that's way beyond what any of the artificial systems currently can do.
So no robot overlords anytime soon.
No.
Okay. I'm somewhat relieved.
And this is nowhere near my field of expertise, but since we're talking about the framework, I just wanted to thank the writers and Ian for the doctor and framework fits. That was A+ storyline.
That's you!
You had fun with that.
Yes, we all have fun with that.
Apart from me.
Yeah, you kind of got a little tortured there.
What about, speaking of the framework, just a show of hands, because I don't think we want to go down this hole, but from all the scientists, are we living in a simulation? Yes or no?
Plausible. I mean, your conscious experience is, to the best of our understanding, according to quantum field theory, a bunch of atoms obeying the laws of physics. You are quarks and electrons following four forces and interacting in ways that we have the equations for. And so you could simulate that if you had sufficient computational power, and that would be sort of equivalent to your consciousness. So I agree with Virginia, we're very far away from doing that. It's horribly complex. We don't know how to upload to a framework or anything, but in theory that is possible. And so who knows? We could be simulations from some higher dimension. Like that's a plausible scientific theory that.
Because our world does feel a little bit right now like when a fourth grader's playing Sim City and gets bored and just turns on all the disasters all at once at the end.
Very insightful in the show when I don't remember who it was, but somebody said the people in there wouldn't actually realize that it wasn't real, and it's totally true, right? Your experiences are just what your brain tells you. For instance, our retinas are just two-dimensional, right? So the light coming in is hitting a two-dimensional retinas, but we get this interpretation of a 3D world. We believe we live in a 3D world, probably a 3D world, but if it was a 4D or a 5D world and we were just able to sense a 3D, we wouldn't know any different. And so you can't know what you don't know.
And these are the scientific observations that terrify me.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
But there's a show in there somewhere.
No, actually, I think the show Devs, which was on Hulu recently, was a great science show. I don't know what you scientists thought of it or if you saw it, but you should check it out. And it goes to questions of free will versus determinism, and whether we have choice or not, and they're getting into quantum predictions and everything, and they use the word quantum a lot to make it sexy. But I thought it was a terrific show and asked a lot of really provocative, interesting questions. I don't get paid to reference that. I just love it.
I always enjoy a good reference, especially in the quarantine. I find myself with some time to watch more TV, which is good because there's so many great shows out there. We're actually coming close to the end of our 45 minutes already, which I can't believe because it doesn't feel like 45 minutes already. But that's what my iPhone says. So, but we have a little bit more time. What did I not ask that you really wanted to share with our audience today, either from the agent side or from the science side? What is one point, especially Agents is coming to an end, and I'm really sad about it. I will miss it a lot. Any wisdom parting words from the Agents team to all the fans out there of the show?
No wisdom. We're not wise people, but we are grateful. And I would say the thing that we make a point of saying every year that we come back, which is many more than we expected, is to thank the fans for their support and their love. The fact that they care about Fitz and Simmons and Coulson and Daisy and Mac and May and Yo-Yo is why we're still here. And it's really fun, and it's sad we can't go to Comic-Con and do that again. But watching fans in line, either young Asian American women who are going to Ming and Chloe and saying, "Thank you, I want to be like you," or people going to scientists like Jemma, or people who go to Joel and say, "I'd like to be a robot like you." It really is spectacular. And without the fans, we wouldn't be here. And so we're grateful for that.
Fans.
Yay, fans. I'm glad to be a fan for sure. Scientists, any parting words for current scientists, for the scientists who don't even know they want to be scientists in the future?
I think one thing that the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. really got right that a lot of shows don't is showing a team of scientists. Even if they didn't get character names or lines, there were people in the background. There were other people in those labs and in the field. And that's something that doesn't get portrayed a lot. And so it does take a team. As much as I love Fitzsimmons, you need 10 more people in that lab doing those things. And as much as I wish I could montage my scientific experiments the way that they do on the show, it also takes time. And so I think that's one of those things to just know, and we need more scientists and anyone who's interested.
And it takes people with different backgrounds working together.
Yes. Diversity is highly important, which I would think is the same in a writing room, isn't it?
100%.
Mm-hmm. And in the acting world.
And in the world in general.
Yeah. And in the world in general. Yes, for sure. Well, I'm really sorry that our time has just flown by so quickly because I have so many more questions that I had written down that I could get to. But I want to thank all of you for making the time to join us here today, to celebrate Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. one more time. and I can't wait to watch the remaining seasons of it. For anybody who stumbled across this panel, doesn't know Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. yet, my question is why? Also get on it, watch it now, it is amazing. Maybe you came to the panel because you were interested in science. Thank you for that. If you weren't interested in science, I hope you are now. I hope we got your curiosity sparked. I encourage you to, of course, visit the Fleet Science Center website. I have to say that, fleetscience.org. Also check out the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. website. If you are a fan, there's lots of good resources for you to have some more fun with it and stay engaged with the show. And thank all of you panelists for your time. I greatly appreciate it. It's been an absolute pleasure and honor for me. That, you know, my fangirl moment, I haven't quite gotten over it yet when I look at the screen, so I apologize. Thank you very much for all of you for joining us.
You.
Thank you. This was so fun.
Thank you so much.